Michael, you said it was a bad type of draw on Saturday. How frustrating is it for you that you're making mistakes and conceding goals with sloppy movements at the back of the pitch?
Yeah, it's very frustrating. You know, you never like to concede goals cheaply or easily, and I think we've done that. I think, to be honest, in recent weeks, we've been very good in a lot of areas, but we have to look at the reason behind why we concede the goals, and also, a lot of times it's maybe put as a team as a whole, and sometimes I think maybe, we're very much on the front foot, and maybe we leave exposed defenders a little bit. I wouldn't say exposed, but I think when we look back at the game on Saturday, we allowed ourselves to be 2v2 a lot of times in situations, which meant we had to put some extra pressure on the defensive players, I think, which sometimes can lead to mistakes. But ultimately, we've got to eradicate those mistakes from our game as well.
Well, having said that, I think you've made great strides in your level of performance. And how do you now get onto a winning run of 4 or 5 games to catapult yourselves up the table like Forest, Blackburn and Borough have done? Please don't tell me score more goals.
Well, look, I think, like, if you look at the game on Saturday, I think we had as much with 70-odd% possession. What we didn't do well enough in the game, and we had 3 or 4 really good opportunities in the first half, where we make the wrong choice. We could play people in, and we make choices which lead to nothing, to be honest, and those are all areas that I think we got to improve. And a lot of our younger players a lot of our attacking players are younger players, so that's part of their game that they're still refining. We've obviously got Terry still working his way back from the injury as well, and Jacob, Jaden, all the players that we had in the attacking areas on Saturday, coupled with, at times, midfield players and fullback stepping into the game. We just got to refine that part of our game. But the key thing is that we're playing with the right intentions and with the right intensity as well.
Talking about intensity, you'll have to match Luton's intensity. I mean, they very good at getting to second balls, and they're in 8th position with 48 points. You're 4 behind them. They had a good win against West Brom, albeit West Brom seem to be falling off a cliff at the moment. But they followed that up. They had a previous match where they lost 3-0 against Birmingham. So we know it's going to be a tough match. It always is. But for the fans, there'll be a little bit extra on this because of the previous manager of Stoke.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't look at that, to be honest. You know what I mean? I don't, history's history. It doesn't affect me and what I do. I'll be looking at it from the point of view of that, if we play as we have done in recent weeks, that we win the game. That the disappointing thing we've had to deal with in recent weeks is that we haven't. And so, I'm sure Nathan Jones, like any manager that comes back to a previous clubs, wants to do well. But that's not really for any concern for me at all. For me, it's about continuing to progress the team. And you're right. Luton have done very well. Ideally, we don't want the game to be a second ball game. We want to be in control of the game. And if you look at how we've played, certainly I think in recent weeks it's much more where we were in the early part of the season, probably up to November. And that's not necessarily down to a tactical change. I think that's probably more personnel driven. We now have, a lot of our injured players coming back. We've added, I think, good players in the transfer window as well. And, we've got a strong squad to finish the season with.
For all the disappointment of imagine missing out last Saturday with COVID, it must have been very pleasing for you to see Tyrese scoring 2 goals and looking a little bit more like his old self.
Of course, it's very good to see. I think when you're a player like Tyrese, goals give you confidence. I think it wouldn't really have, different positions really. Obviously, Ty's playing off the right, and Madge is an out-and-out number 9. So there's room for the two of them in the side. But I think for Ty, particularly the second goal, where that's the Ty that we've been used to seeing, particularly when he's played in that position, coming in off and on his left-hand side, and a brilliant finish in at the bottom corner. And it was a goal worthy of winning the game. The disappointing thing is that we conceded a poor goal after that, and ultimately, For Tyrese, I think, he with game by game, I think he's getting better physically. I think his confidence in the mental side of it is improving all the time as well, because, you never can underestimate, how difficult it is to come back from an injury of that nature. And I think, as I say, Saturday was a big step for him.
Stoke's inconsistency is really a mirror image of the league, isn't it? I mean, it's so inconsistent. One week the bottom team can beat the top team, etc. But you could do with somebody like Powell being back to provide that extra spark. How are we on the injury front, and how is he?
We're next fine to be considered tomorrow night. The only ones that are not available to us tomorrow night are obviously Harry. Mario Vrancic is still a few days away, and Abdullah Sima wouldn't be ready. He's trained the last couple of days since coming back from Brighton. So those are the players at the minute that wouldn't be in contention to play. But next back, and hopefully he stays fit. He hasn't played enough for us this season. Injury has been a problem, and with the 15 games we've got left this season, we would like him obviously to be as fit as possible to take part and give us that added boost in the running in the season.
So I'm assuming by that Sawyers might be available to play some part?
Yeah, remains back and is trained as well. Yeah, so competition for places is good, and that's what we need.
And Ben Wilmot's over his sickness?
Yeah, he is. Yeah, he didn't feel particularly well in the latter stages of the game, and so yeah, I'm not really sure the reason for that, whether he took something at half time or something that didn't agree with him. But yeah, he's been fine and has trained the last 2 days.
When you've got a big game against Bournemouth at the weekend, and the weather, how it's been this week, it must have been difficult to prepare for the Luton match, let alone the Bournemouth game.
Yeah, look, the weather's been challenging. I think, that it's about keeping training simple, to be honest. It's not very difficult to coach in this kind of weather with the wind howling and the rain. But where you can add real values in the analysis room, and we've obviously reviewed areas that we're pleased with in the team, and as always we look at the areas where we feel we need to improve, and the structure of the team as well, and the reasons behind possibly why we have conceded goals as well in terms of the structure of the team. And we've done a lot of that, obviously, during these difficult days in terms of the weather.
Well, you talked about the weather. It's certainly taken its toll on many pitches, and our own pitch isn't looking as pristine as it has in previous years. Does that affect the performance?
I think the biggest thing that always affects the performance is the wind, to be honest. For me, that's the one thing that I always gives me biggest concern, because I always feel that, if it's blowing straight down the pitch, you kind of have literally a game of two halves where one team has a definitive advantage. It's difficult, and the other team, sometimes it can be even difficult to play with the wind as well. So for me, I think the pitch has held up really well. The groundsmen have been really challenged with the weather that we've had, but yeah, I still think it played well enough on Saturday. It's at the stage of the season where it is demanding on the players physically, but there's not a pitch in the country that probably isn't like that at this minute in time.
I mean, that there's always something to play for. A lot of fans will suggest that the season's already over, and certainly if you don't get 3 points against Luton, the season will be over. But the players are all still up for it. Tyrese Campbell was saying, as you would expect, that everybody's positive, and I'm sure you don't think it's over yet either.
Definitely not. I think we are still in a cup competition, Ange, aren't we? I believe we are still in a cup competition, right? Okay, that would give us something to play for then. And I think we've plenty to play for in the league. Look, fans are very emotional and react to things, and I fully understand that. But no, we have a lot to play for, and we intend to play for that. And we look forward to even playing in a cup competition and staying in it as well.
Well, that's me told. But before I let you go on to George, given the fact that you've got 3 big games in the next few days, will you look at freshening up the side?
Well, but I think I think you always have to look at the period. We had a full week, I think, in the Birmingham. Memory serves me right, and then so it probably comes more between now and the international break, because we've got midweeks right the way up to that. So that'll be the time that we look to that. There'll be a natural unavailability of players because of knocks and fatigue and everything. So yeah, look, we'll look to freshen up the team in the right areas if we feel the need to do it. But we obviously want to get consistency into the team as well, and players want to play, and so you've got to get that mentality into your dressing room that good performances will keep you in the team, and that's where obviously the mentality that we want to instill in this group of players.
Thank you. Good luck, Michael.
Thank you.
Thanks, George, now please.
Michael, obviously the frustration, you've already touched on it briefly. Conceding these late goals from a winning position not only must frustrate you, but you must be on the touchline when we're closing into the end of these games. Does it worry you then? We're getting there and corners start coming in, you're thinking, oh, we're going to concede yet again? Does that worry you from the sidelines?
I try not to, no, not so much during the game. No, I think the key as a coach is to be as positive as possible with your team from the sideline, to be as analytical as possible as well. Like, I'm certainly never thinking when we're 2-1 up that we're going to concede. Sometimes we have done that. There's no doubt about that. But and then when that happens in the game as a coach, you're constantly trying to find a way to get ahead again in the game. The substitutions that we made are always, I think, of a positive nature. But we just have to continue to work at that. Unfortunately, we've lost winning possessions too often, and that's something that we've got to play through, and we've got to grow, become a little bit more resolute at times. Possibly we're playing a little bit too much on the front foot when we're ahead, but when you're at home, there's always an expectancy for you to do that, and we've tried to do that, as opposed to go and try and score again and make the game 3-1, and then the game can become a little bit easier. But unfortunately, we were pegged back by a poor goal on Saturday, and one that we shouldn't have conceded.
The experienced players within your team now, Jagielka, for instance, there's a lot of experience within that side. Joe Allen, of course. When you're moving to that stage, is the emphasis on them to take control, which they may not be able to hear from you from the sidelines?
Well, the game's it's not so much like that, George, to be honest. And there's so many variables in the game of football, and players are concerned with their own performances in the game. Of course, we want them to manage the game well and make good decisions on the pitch in every situation, but it doesn't happen like that. And so, we obviously feel that at times in games we have allowed the game to become a little bit stretched. I think that happens in the Championship by nature, that the game becomes a little bit long and at times can become a little bit chaotic. And certainly I don't think that suits us as a team. But, the senior players, there's a lot of responsibility on them, because around them we have quite an inexperienced team in terms of games in the Championship. But, it would be unfair to give them full responsibility for those situations in the game, because some things in the game are not obviously in your control, and we have to focus on our own level of performance, both individually and as a team as well.
Guys, back-to-backs very, very quickly, Michael. From that point of view, as a manager, do you enjoy that, despite the fact you might have injuries to concur with? But I know players would rather play than train, wouldn't they? And I imagine you would concur with that.
No, I would rather train and have more time between the games, because it would give me more preparation time with the team. And I think that's where you get the opportunity. You don't get a lot of full training weeks in the Championship. And, particularly if you stay in the Cup, and we stayed in, we had 4 games in the Carabao Cup. We're now on our 3rd game in the FA Cup to come up. So all of those eat into your midweeks and your training weeks as well. So, I think players always want to play, particularly if they've not been in the side and they want games to come around quickly. But from a coaching perspective, you want time on the training pitch with your players, because it gives you a chance to work on your team and the structure of your team and both sides of how your team is playing, both with the ball and without the ball. So unfortunately, we're not going to get a lot of that between now and the end of the season, and we just have to adapt. And we're well experienced and well used to obviously the schedule that we have to deal with.
Well, Luton up next, of course, and Nathan returns, but it's his second spell at the club, and certainly he's turned it around well. Last season was a different situation because he had to avoid battle of relegation, did it well, and he's put them very much in a chance of facing and getting challenging for the playoffs. So he's turned it around well, hasn't he, there?
Yeah, he's done a good job. You know what I mean? It was difficult when he went back, I think, initially, and they managed to survive in the league, and they've probably added some players that have helped them. And, you know, they've got a tight group of players. Probably quite a lot of them were there when he was there the first time. So knowing the dressing room as well as he did is always a nice situation to have as a manager. So, yeah, he's done a good job.
Obviously, you've seen them this time. You've played against them. Do you see changing anything? Obviously, they've had a transfer window and added 1 or 2 players. Do you see them any change from the way they'll come and face you on this Wednesday night?
No, I think they've played predominantly with a back three this season. They played that against us earlier in the season. You know, they were quite direct when we played them earlier in the season. A lot longer balls that we had to defend. We won the game down there 1-0, and with a real bit of quality for the goal, particularly from Remain on the right hand side. So again, I think you know, we don't envisage anything too different. You know, they're having a good season, and you know that's worked for them in terms of how they're playing. So we just have to make sure we deal with that, and you know, focus on how we play, and obviously how we impose our game on the opposition is the most important thing for us.